What really moved this story yesterday, by the way, was when it was revealed that the pilot of the Ethiopian plane that crashed had flight control issues. It was described as the nose of the jet wanting to go down, right? Wanting to go down right after takeoff. And there's this, a newly discovered, by those of us in the media anyway, type of database that allows pilots to talk to each other about issues related to planes and airports that shows that U.S. pilots have for quite a while now been complaining about this Boeing 737 MAX 8. Rachel Blevins has been following this story. She joins us now to take us through it. First of all, what is this database where we're getting this information from the pilots?
Right, so this is a federal database where airline pilots can go and submit anonymous complaints about experiences that they have when they're flying. And we're talking about this now because the Boeing 737 MAX 8 is in the news, and it turns out that there are a number of airline pilots who have actually submitted complaints about this plane recently that are here in the United States.
And they match pretty much what we've been told about the nose of the plane that may have caused the crashes?
Exactly. So their stories are really eerie because they actually line up with some of the stories that we've seen these deadly crashes from. So let's take a look at a few of the comments that we've seen on this database. So on one of them, a pilot wrote, quote, "I looked at and engaged a autopilot as I was returning to my primary flight display. Pilot monitoring called descending, followed by an almost immediate don't sink, don't sink. I immediately disconnected autopilot and resumed climb."
Wow.
So what he's saying is that they took off, everything was fine, and then they put the plane on autopilot, and all of a sudden the nose just starts diving. And luckily they were
He didn't want to go down, but the plane was doing it on its own.
Exactly, and it was on autopilot, so it was supposed to have been flying with no problems at all.
Wow.
And luckily, manually, they were able to fix that. But what's really scary is that there's another pilot who has the exact same story.
Wow.
So another pilot wrote in this database, and he said, quote, "The aircraft accelerated normally and the captain engaged the A autopilot after reaching set speed. Within 2 to 3 seconds, the aircraft pitched nose down. I called descending just prior to the ground proximity warning system, sounding don't sink again. The captain immediately disconnected the autopilot and pitched into a climb." So we have another similar story. But then there's another account on this database that really calls out the airlines that use these planes and the FAA. And he's saying that the pilots who are flying these planes aren't prepared. And he said, quote, "I think it is unconscionable that a manufacturer, the FAA, and the airlines would have pilots flying an airplane without adequately training or ever providing available resources and sufficient documentation to understand the highly complex systems that differentiate this aircraft from prior models. The flight manual is inadequate." That really calls out the airlines that use these planes and the FAA. And he's saying that the pilots who are flying these planes aren't prepared. And he said, quote, "I think it is unconscionable that a manufacturer, the FAA, and the airlines would have adequate and almost criminally insufficient."
Wow. And he wrote that. Now, these are anonymous pilots talking on this database, which now we were able to get access to, and it really does make a difference. Rachel, thank you for that report. Let's do this. Let's go over to John Jordan. John Jordan, why John Jordan?